My elbow hurts so bad. Damn, it's so loud. Ah, whatever. It's gonna be super, super low. My elbow. Ouch. So right here, you have a little bone. And this bone rests against everything, always. And it hurts. Like, it doesn't actually hurt when I press it or anything. But the second I, like, rest it against the armrest or something, just a little bit, it starts to hurt, like, immediately. I'm making coffee. Alright, so. We have been rapidly working through the steps of the combat phase. Eh. For some reason that shows white. Wrong. Doesn't have a command. Ria does not recover. So, let's see. Action database. This is triple stab. And then in base and behavior. This is for I put an end behavior here too. So then the question is, which end behavior is the base? I think this is probably how to do it. Breakfast is served. Also, I hurt everywhere. Holy shit. Oh, I exercised yesterday. It's over. Oh, shit. Alright, so we're creating a new virtual here, because this needs to be overridden, but this is unused, but it needs to be here. Otherwise, I can't call end behavior without casting from anything that's a combat action, because it's contained within an action list, while this is a combat action. This is an action, LOT action, and this is an LOT combat action. And I've done that because regular actions don't need to have all of this shit. AoE sizes, centers, patterns, heat cost, etc., etc. They could. And it's one of those things that you actually have to really question, like, is this worth splitting up? And I would say the answer is probably no, but I'm doing it anyway. Jesus. Some fried salami. Because they, like, undercooked it at the factory. So it's terrible raw. Alright. And then we go back to actions, action database. And then command stage 6, we run end behavior. And in end behavior, we check, we make sure that we execute all the triggers, the attacks and stuff. And here I am setting the combat phase to end. I actually hate this. I hate this a lot. But it's one of those things where kind of doesn't matter. Because I can just I just see it like, okay, so if there's one issue, like I forget to put this on one ability or one skill or one action, then the game's like unplayable. And I think it's common to be like, you know, what if we write something that can kind of handle that? And, you know, if something is missing, we can maybe play anyway. But I think it's almost better that it doesn't work. Because then you can just fix it. And then it works. And then it's fine. Right? The question would be otherwise, like, how can I build it to get the same function, but being less error prone? And I'm not so sure if I can. I think I can. Because we're in a phase called combat action execution. That's our current phase. So what I could do in action execution is I could read the object. And I could just, if I do this, we set command stage to 0. Then in here, we could go to here. This is the action execution update. So then we could say if if current turn dot unit dot no, that won't work because command stage is internal. Because I could just set a state on the object. But here's the thing. Setting a state on the object that then is looked for in action execution is the same as just ending it from the object. But the real issue, I would say, is that ending it from the object is wrong. And the reason for that is because we shouldn't actually end action execution until all objects involved report that they're finished. Because you might have a unit that like counterattacks every time it's attacked. Or something like that. Or it counterattacks once. Like that turn, it has a counterattack where it attacks back after it's been attacked. So I might just do something like... Now see here, on end behavior, I am removing all targets. And that becomes a problem then. Because I'm using the object's targets to like access the other things that are in combat. So I'm just thinking. I think the way it should work is that the main controller should be the one that handles it. So, like, whenever a unit becomes focused, or it's like the current unit, it's the current unit's turn or whatever. Right now, I'm just saying current turn.unit every time, which works. And it should work always. But I'm thinking of adding more variables. Current turn is defined here. I kind of want this to have an LOT object that says current unit. And then I want a public list that says target units. And the way I want this to work is that targets should always be handled through this list, and anything in the main script should use these two. And for example, the use case is if I start casting a spell and that spell has a target. If that spell has cast time, we then have to store the targets, because we don't have space here in the main script to just store all of that. So I store that in the object that is casting, because that's the one that's relevant. And what I then should do is I should when it becomes that unit's turn again and it's set to cast the spell, it could just use the unit or the targets that it has internally. But what I think I want it to do is to feed it back to the main controller. So before it does anything, it sets the targets back, and then it reads the targets from the main controller. Like I said, it could read it internally, but I just want consistency in how this is done. Oh, I'm not sure, actually. Because there is a thing you could do, right, where if you have like 6 enemy units that are all acting in a row, and they're all just gonna do some basic attack. Not everything needs to have special functions and special attacks and shit. So let's say you have some basic enemy, and it's just gonna go in and do a basic attack. If you have 4 or 5 or 6 of them in a row, they can all act at the same time. And they can all attack and deal damage at the same time. And that saves so much time in turn-based game. But it's something I would like to do, but it's also something that's a problem in other scenarios. Because, like, let's say you have 3 objects or 3 enemy types, or 3 enemies rather, but they're all of a type that can, like, move characters around, like they have some kind of knockback or something. Then that would fuck up the AI for the other monsters that just do basic attacks. Actually, maybe I'm changing my mind entirely. Maybe I do want to handle it more from the unit side. Because if they all need to act at the same time, that means that targeting needs to be handled individually, and they need to do that on their own. Alright. But in that case, how should I handle this? What if we do this? We just use a list. If units in combat.count equals 0, then... No, not in combat. If units in... Units executing actions combat action execution objects. Oh my god, that is so terrible. We'll do it like that. Done. Does this have to be so tricky? I think this could actually be moved to here. What do you mean you don't have trigger? Huh? How does it even work then? No, it does take a stage. Yeah, the stage is which action we're doing there. Okay. Where do we even run this from? Yeah, we run it from in here, from behavior. That's why it doesn't need this. What am I doing? I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt. It's just more code, and it doesn't really help anything. But I do feel like it makes it a little clearer that there is something there that you can use. I suppose. So the question is, if when I attack somebody, if that unit does an attack on a target, we then take the target from the mouse controller when I click the target, that executes the action. In that moment, I need to save the mouse target into the object, and then I also need to assign this needs just needs some more faces, I think, because so here's the thing. Right now I can attack an object, and then at the end of the action itself, I just tell the combat system to end itself, and or to end the action execution phase, and I set it to end the duel. And what that means is that there's no room for more actions to happen in combat. So, for example, if I want an enemy to be able to counterattack at the end, or be able to like parry the first hit do a counterattack and then the original action is cancelled or anything like that, then I won't be able to do that because it's all handled from the skill itself. So that's not how I want it to work. It would be better if when I click the targets, as it initiates the execution phase, it sets the objects to be a part of the execution phase. And then we ask the objects if they're done. And if the objects say yes, then we end the execution phase. But the question is, how do you ask an object if it's done when all the object is doing is standing in idle? I guess the answer is that that means that they are done. But how do we know that they're just standing in idle? Like, what if they do have some kind of counter? And where do I put that? Do I just store that in action to trigger? Because I do want counterattacks. Like ripostes and stuff. That is an integral part of the vision that I have, at least. So that would mean I'd have to go to combat module. And here we should add something like as acted is delaying combat entity, damage taken. I feel like it would need like a public LOT action. Now a public LOT action reaction action. That sounds a little funky, but it doesn't matter. We're not writing prose here. I don't know if it needs to. I think it's not. Like, it's not serialized. Just place. This needs to be fixed because this is a mono behavior, and we don't want a single mono behavior in the entire script. I think the biggest hurdle jumping over to monogame might be that I may have to rewrite the shader for Vulkan. We'll see. I'm kind of afraid of that. But I don't know. It really depends on if... Because I think Monogame's shader architecture is kind of dated at this point. I think they don't support a whole lot of render versions or render target versions. But I'm not sure if they actually don't support high enough. So it really just depends. It could work already. I could potentially literally just copy paste it over and try. Fucking dog! Swear to God. So the way I think I'm gonna do this is it's gonna be something like this. It's not gonna be this. This is bad. We're gonna say 4. Combat action execution objects dot count. And then if combat action execution objects I dot current action equals null and I'm not sure if we're running it from current action. Where is behavior handled? LOT action. Virtual void behavior. Right, current action is handled in update. Holy shit. Oh, my legs hurt so bad. So you should do arms today then. Today's Friday, right? Yeah. And maybe we should also check and dot temporary action, and this should be, let's go and delete this, I think. This should be action module. So what we're gonna do here is we are simply going to do a bool exit base equals false. No equals true. And then we're gonna say if current action does not equal null, or temporary action does not equal null, or reaction action does not equal null, then we're gonna say exit phase equals false. And then down here, we're gonna say if exit phase, then we set dual end. And then here we'll just add things to this later, if necessary. And here, temporary action, for example, is taking damage. And no, this doesn't work. Current action equals null doesn't work. Fuck. This is where having a state would be good. Because current action should never ever be null. It's just gonna be like it transitions from action to dual idle. I might have to add a state system. Uh, Luckily, I already have one, kind of. Let's see here, we're gonna have to do set action. And what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to say public LOT animation state. Action state. An animation state works like this. Set animation state. If user animation state. Handle casting animation. This needs to be fixed. So let's rename this to action state. Perhaps. I'll be right back. Oh, hello, Jano. Enable stream rates for the once in a lifetime that Kibbs wants to raid me. Sure. I don't know how to enable it. How to enable stream raid. YouTube. It's in Swedish. I don't understand. Hit YouTube. Like, why isn't there just a button? I have no clue. I don't know. Change permissions. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, YouTube is dog shit. It's literally the worst streaming platform in the entire world. It is so bad. You have to, like, access 14 different accounts and menus to, like, change one thing. To, like, change the language. Like, I have no clue. Like, it tells me to go to manage permissions, but there's, like, okay. Then what? Yeah, all channels can redirect to my... Okay. Okay, now it should work. Congrats. Terrible. Now I'm not gonna remember what I was doing. Alright, how do I program? Right. User dot date user dot animation state. This needs to be deleted, and this should just be like that. This doesn't need to exist. This should be renamed to like action state. And then here we have a bunch of basic things. Skill. Let's put that at the bottom. And let's do it something like that, maybe. And then here we check if there's always an action module, I would say. But let's see. is we have an action state here now in the object, but I feel like that should be in the action module. And then we end up with this. Set animation state. This doesn't need to exist. And here, setting action state to 0. It doesn't need to exist. And then here we're simply going to, when we set the action, we're going to set the action state to action state. So that's going to be user.action module, not action state. Let's make a check here. If user.action module does not equal null. And we do that. And then each action needs to have action state equals LOT action state dual idle. And right now, nothing else really matters. So now I can say if action module dot action state does not equal dual idle, then we do that. That one should maybe be like this. Oh, Turnip, how's it going? Hello, everyone. How's it going? We are programming. Hello, Capes. Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome for me enabling raids. It was very hard. It took like 10 minutes to figure out how to do it. But yes, we be coding. Trying to get through combat right now. We completed a major order in the clutch. What's the clutch? I haven't played Helldivers 2 since it came out, almost. So I've been reworking a lot of the back end of the code, where how we're storing data, how actions are stored, how animations are stored, how unit information is stored. And that's taken a lot of time. And now that that's done, I have to fix the rest of the code that was dependent on the previous way to structure data and stuff. And while I'm doing that, I'm also fixing and streamlining the way I was doing things. So I've changed it so that, because before the combat was a bit of a spaghetti code. It like went into this and that place and did this and that, and like in the objects or in like the mouse or whatever. But I've changed it so that now each phase of combat exists here in this little method. So we have all these phases that it goes through. And in each phase, when we enter each phase, I set certain variables and change things and trigger things, and then we have a more structured and clear way of seeing like how things flow. And right now I'm just trying to get through it all, and also figuring out like what edge cases might exist. Right now I'm trying to think of, or rather I did think of situations where for example, before when I was executing an action in combat, I was just making one unit execute an attack, for example, on a target. And at the end of the attack, I just made the unit tell the combat system that the action sequence or the execution of the attack was over. And that way it could transition out of the attack sequence and continue with the combat. But the issue with that was that what if I want the target to be able to like counter or parry or something like that, or maybe once you finish attacking, the enemy has some kind of skill enabled that makes them counterattack after the fact, or maybe if you're attacking with a multi-hit attack, maybe the first hit gets parried and then you get attacked back, and then the rest is cancelled and stuff like that. So I had to rework that a bit in order to allow the combat system to kind of flow more on its own and check, like, are all the objects finished with what they intend to do or might do. And if they are, then we can continue with the combat. So, yeah. That's what I'm trying to do right now. So basically, every time the code updates while we are in the action execution phase, we're going to check all the objects that are engaged. And we're gonna check their state to see if they're, like, the way I'm handling it is I set a boolean. This is very interesting for anyone who doesn't know anything about programming, but I set a boolean, which is a yes or no statement, basically. That's called exit phase, and I set it to yes, which means, or I set it to true, which means that we will exit the execution phase. And then I go through all the objects that are engaged in combat, and I check their states to see if they're not in idle or if they're not dead. This should probably be an and. So we're checking if it's not in duel and it's not dead, or if it has a temporary action assigned to it, or if it has a reaction action loaded. Then we change it to false, because then we've checked them and we see, oh, some units still have things left to do. And if they do, then we set it to no, and then we don't exit. Now, the next issue here is I don't think I can do this. I can't check for a reaction action. The reason for that is, what if I have a reaction set up, but the reaction doesn't trigger on the kind of attack that is hit with? Like, let's say we, like, I don't know if this is going to exist, but I have to think of what might exist, right? Like what we might put in. So, for example, what if you have an action that might react to a spell being cast on you? Doing something like, maybe it puts up a shield, maybe it like throws the spell back at the target or at the caster or something like that, right? That's not a reaction that would trigger in combat. So if I have something that like that loaded and then the unit gets attacked in melee, that would mean that combat would freeze and never work anymore, because we're reading that. So I don't think that works, but I think it's fine without, because I think it could, that would trigger before we would want to exit combat anyway. And now the concern here is maybe unless I set these states properly immediately, which I think I do, then the action execution could end on the first frame and it wouldn't do anything. Why does it say music intensity modifier 20 there? I don't feel like that should be in the update. That should be in action execution here. It's already set there. Okay, good. It's the same, right? Yeah. Okay. And this is called entering execution phase. Okay. Let's see. Ria, non-combat, combat. He has a dual action here. End of duel. Let's take that over to Hemispheric Spearman. Dual idle. PC dot Nephir dot Spearman dot idle dot east west dot request animation. Like that. And then where were we? Here. The duel needs to be new LOT action database dot npc dot nephir dot spearman dot combat dot duel. And duel end also needs to be that. I don't think this is good. It should be like a public virtual void. Progress time, maybe. And then action time index. I think this is fine, kind of. Action length. Let's change this current animation to just be an index. Not sure. I don't know. I don't think it actually needs current animation in this manner. If we just change this to an integer, it's gonna give us shitloads of errors. But what we can do then is we can just say animation list current animation. Index. And then grab that. And here it's checking if the current animation is a loop. But I don't think that's correct. I think that should just be loop. Yeah. Actually, no. Oh man. Maybe? See, the issue here is I've changed the animation system. Because before, the way I was animating was like, the animation system had its own, like, state tree where it would be like, if the object's current animation state is attacking, then the animation module would read that state, and it would then set itself to be in an attacking, it would set itself to the attacking animation. So all I had to do was tell the object what state it was in, and it would then animate itself accordingly. But I've changed that into kind of the same thing, except it's actions. So now it's like, okay, your current action is going to be attacking. Then it just runs the action which contains, or the attacking action which contains all the functions for attacking, like dealing damage and stuff like that. And the action then has a time internally that determines like which part of the attack are we currently in. And instead of having like an animation system on the side, all I'm doing is I'm using the action time, and I'm just checking which sprite should we load based on that, and then I just do that. So I basically reworked the entire animation system into an action system instead. And that was because it became like complicated and unnecessarily tedious to have like an action that runs with its own internal time, and simultaneously you have an animation just on the side that runs in tandem with that and has its own internal time too. And it was just unnecessarily complicated. And now I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so the currently animations still have a bunch of information in them, like, is this animation loopable, or like the length of the animation. While I kind of consolidated actions, so before I had an animation for casting was a casting intro, a casting loop, and then a casting outro, or like a finishing animation. And when I changed things into actions, I changed that into one casting action. And then inside the casting action, it loads 3 animations. But now, the issue becomes that only the middle part, the loop, needs to be able to loop, right? So that means that I need to be able to set that it should loop or not. But I can't like tell the action in a good way to loop or not. determine like which part of the action is supposed to loop or not. I can, because like I can just... It is kind of solved, but I feel like there are edge cases where it's not. Let's just go with loop now. Anyway, if action time index is greater than animation list current animation index, dot animation length, if loop animation time index equals action time index, or action time index equals action time index, modulo animation list animation length. Modulo wraps it around. So if you have like, if it says 10, and you have this, the percentage sign, it's called modulo. It says 10 modulo 3. Then it's gonna take 10 minus 3 equals 7. And then it checks that against 3. If that is 3 or less. Actually, I'm not sure. But I think if it was 3, it would become 0. So then we check it again against 3. Then it becomes 4. Modulo. Where is it? Fuck. There. Against 3 equals 1. And that's where if you modulo it against 1, then it just becomes 1. Because it like loops it around a 3. And that's what I'm using to loop the time around the index here. Or around the animation length. Current animation index dot frames dot length. And here current index should be current frame index. And here, let's see. If action time index is greater than start time, then we do that, else break. Because if this is false, then we can just stop this whole thing. Else if current frame index plus 1 is less than animation list dot frames dot length and animation time index is greater than This actually needs to do this as well, I think. Kind of. Except this eye should start at current frame index. Why does it say -1 behind the length? Is that right? I don't know if that's right. Unless there's a reason for it. Yeah, it's because I'm trying to set it to +1. If current frame index +1 is less than the current animation's amount of frames, it means that I'm checking if hello, okay, how's it going? I'm checking if we are at the last frame already. Because if we're at the last frame, then we can't progress the index. And if action time index is greater than the next frame's start time. Then we're gonna check if current frame index, or we're gonna do a for loop if action time index is greater than current frame index start time. Yeah. So here it needs to have this extra thing here. We can't just set it because it needs to be able to catch up if there's like a huge lag spike or something. And for whatever reason, the animation falls behind a frame or 3, then we need to be able to catch up. How shit was Ultima? Ultima 4 was very, 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 very shit. I might play more later, but it was very shit. I loved reading the manual, and the manual says like, every NPC in the game is capable of carrying out a full conversation. And but the reality is that every NPC is retarded. So it's like you go up to somebody and he's like, I am Lord Elrond. I lead the High Council. And you're like, okay. Hello, Lord Elrond, leader of the High Council. What is it you do around here? And he's like, I lead the High Council. And you're like, okay. Then you type in council. And he's like, I am the leader of the council. And then you type in leader and he's like, that's what I do around here. And then you're like, yeah, that's a full conversation for sure. Goodbye. Yeah. And that's like every NPC is like that. Every single one. And the game really just boils down to, you go to every single town and you need to further yourself on the path. And the path is just, you know, every minor path is like the path of justice, the path of virtue, the path of sacrifice, the path of whatever. But from what I can tell, the only thing so far that I've been able to figure out what that means is that you need to go to every town and then you need to ask every NPC about the word that that town belongs to. So you just go to like every single NPC and you're like, virtue, rune. And then you go to the next one, virtue, rune. The next one, virtue, rune. And then eventually some guy is like, oh, the rune. Like, Steve knows about the rune. And then you go back to Steve and you ask rune and he's like, the rune is hidden at the end of the corridor in the inn. And then you go to the end of the corridor in the inn and you press search and then you find the rune. And sometimes you can just see it on the map where it's like, there's like a little weird thing, like a little alcove, or there's like a patch of brick on the ground randomly for no reason. And then you go there and you press search and you're like, you found the rune of justice, without even talking to like a single NPC in town. It was so obvious. I don't know what to do with them. I only went to one shrine so far, and the only thing you do there is there's a big ankh in the middle, and when you interact with it, it says, do you want to meditate on the path of virtue? And you're like, yes. And all it asks you is that you need to know the mantra for that path. And then you just sit there and you just type it in 3 times, the mantra. And then it says like, after deep meditation, you can see that you may make progress in the path of virtue, and you're like, okay, I suppose. And you're like, okay, did that do anything? I don't know. Think you need to change the mantra? I didn't see anything like that in the manual. I did read the manual. I don't think so. It wasn't in runes or anything like that either. You do need to use the manual sometimes, but it's so far it's mainly for like looking at the map or figuring out like, oh, okay, which town was the town of druids or whatever, and where was it? Because that's something that is only mentioned really in the manual. Or like making spells. You need to, if you're gonna make a spell, you need to open the manual and you need to read the entire flavor text for the spell. So you can find, like at the end of the flavor text where it says, to make this fireball, you need to combine sulfuric acid in 1 part, plus 1 part of black pearl, as the black pearl is the basis of all projectile spells in Britannia. It doesn't just say like ingredients, colon, and then the ingredients. You have to read the entire thing, and it's like half a page of text. But you learn them eventually. Very special game, for sure. The music widget. Various artists. Yeah, okay, it does say Breath of Fire. It's like the fan favorite. Yeah, but the fan favorite is like Morrowind. It just means that it's the worst game. That's that's all it means. Okay, I'm gonna get some water. Close your mouth about my Morrowind, Gramps. But yes. Rough game. Rough. A little bit. So we have progressed time now. And then in set sprite, we need to do this, I guess. You ever play a Phantasy Star game? Yeah, I've finished Phantasy Star 4, I think. We played Phantasy Star 2 a lot at my cousin's place, but the game is really difficult. We did have a guide that I think helped us through a large part of the game, but I don't think we ever finished it. I don't think I finished Phantasy Star 1. Yeah, on the Sega Genesis. You had that. But Phantasy Star 1 is just like a wizardry-style dungeon crawler. Do you even have party members in that? Or is it like a one-person dungeon crawler? It's ass anyway. It doesn't do anything special. It's just a copy pasted game. Like it could be it's just like Wizardry again, but with different graphics. Like it could be literally any other dungeon crawler. They're all the same. At least, especially from that era, they were all literally the same game. But Phantasy Star 4 is actually one of the better JRPGs, I would say. Like, no, it's not great, but it does a lot of, or it does a couple of things when it comes to like presentation and stuff that makes it more enjoyable than most. Like, it has those little cutscene, like comic pop-ups for dialogue and stuff, which is really nice in my opinion. But like, you need the manual to know what any spell does in the entire game. Because they all have like Foyer, that's their name. Foyer, Xaner, Gonger, Oin. And then you use the spell, and there's like a bunch of white rings that appear on the enemies, and it goes like, boo, and then nothing happens. And you're like, okay, the enemy doesn't start glowing or anything, like nothing happens. But otherwise, it's like 99% just a basic JRPG. So it really just boils down to the setting and the music and the presentation. Because it doesn't have any like special mechanics or anything. Like for the Super Nintendo, you don't really get JRPGs that are like mechanically interesting, really. You know, like Chrono Trigger is like one of the most advanced ones, and it has literally like two mechanics. They're like line attacks, and they're like circular attacks. Otherwise, it's literally just Final Fantasy 1, and it doesn't do anything else. Triple attacks are actually worse than Final Fantasy 1. They are cooler, but it means that the game is like mechanically more shallow because the triple attacks are just better almost. It's either the triple attacks are always better or they're always worse. So you just like either you always use like the character skills or you use the double triple attacks every time. Yeah, Chrono Trigger is 100% carried by the presentation. And it's a really like it like graphically and the mood, atmosphere, vibe of this game is stellar, so. Same way with Final Fantasy VI as well. I think they're still better than almost all modern games in that respect. I don't think they are gameplay-wise, but... Toriyama's art style shines really well there. I kind of disagree. I think that it works because you can't tell that it's like that much of Toriyama. The pixels kind of hide the Toriyama a little bit. That's what makes it work. But I do think it's one of his strongest works. I don't really like Toriyama as an artist, but it definitely works there. Yeah. Like when you watch like high resolution Chrono Trigger like AMV cutscenes that they added in like the PS1 version, I just think it looks cringe at that point. Because then you just have his stupid fucking faces with the big eyes that look like this, and then they all smile like this all the time in every single cutscene. I don't like Toriyama as an artist. Like, I don't think Dragon Ball is good because of the art style. It's like good despite of it. And he has like same face, and his art style is so samey to the point where it feels like if you're playing an RPG Maker game. When you play your first RPG Maker game and you look at the sprites and you're like, okay, this is that character and this is that character. And then you go and play another RPG Maker game and you realize that the sprites that the previous game had were just like basic generic sprites that it had just chosen as like, this is one special character and only used there. And then like that character is just standing around everywhere in the world. That's just a basic NPC in another RPG Maker game. That's what that's what Toriyama content feels like to me. So yeah. Yeah. So what are we doing here? We are progressing time. Action database. And then this should be handle, no, progress time. And set sprite should be here. And then action time index should be a part of this. Or let's do that there. Something. Like that. I'm vegging. Hope your back doesn't hurt too much. I don't have back pain. I have tailbone pain. It's not too bad right now, but it's usually decent in the morning. Until I sit all day. But yeah. Good night, nephew. And now we have a billion errors here. Let's see. That sprite hand happens first. Nope, don't set that. Hello, Jack. How's it going? What would you like to ask me? Handle casting animation. No, I don't know anything about Linux. Handle casting animation. I feel like this needs to be just removed. That too. Yeah, that's exactly what I was worried about. Running combat phase, action, execution. So it runs dual transition, and then it runs action, execution. And then it instantly turns itself off. So let's see. Action, execution. Current unit, action, module, set action, action to trigger. But it is set. So why would it cancel combat? Exit phase equals true. Oh, right. It's because I haven't added them to the combat action execution. The combat action let's say action execution phase objects. And then in the mouse, as we execute, so we execute ability, we say main controller.current_turn.unit.combat_module.target_list equals that. Then we set combat phase to action initialization. And then as we set combat phase to action initialization, then I think here we're just gonna say action execution phase objects dot clear action execution. Oh, it's still spelled wrong. Execution phase objects dot add current turn dot unit, and then for mouse targets dot count, or we can say current turn dot unit dot combat module dot target list. And then we go through those and we say action execution phase objects dot add, and add all of those. And that's how we add that. And then let's see. Then we have set combat phase casting. And then here, we're gonna say if action to trigger dot use cast animation, Current unit dot set as casting. If action to trigger. His cast time is greater than 0. Then we set combat phase to end of turn. And then maybe end of turn is where we say target list dot clear. No, not target list. This is supposed to be action, execution, base objects. We clear it there as well. I don't think this is enough, but we can try. And here in end behavior, we're doing a bunch of things, but we need to say something like user dot action module dot set action by index. Why does it not animate or anything? I feel like that should work. Why does it not play? It's like now. Why is it not animating? Is it just incorrectly set up here? It's called dual. It should be at the top. Dual. Set sprite progress time. Maybe the dual isn't set up properly. Dual, we have dual right there. Man, I'm gonna pee. Oh, I don't know why it doesn't work. So we're gonna do... I'm gonna do this. Attach to Unity. All right. So here we are attempting to end the behavior. Let's see. 11 is step into. Setting temp facing direction. If combat module.target list. And then we go through the targets and we change the temp facing direction. This is honestly something that shouldn't be handled in here. And then we try to set the action. Because currently action module says current action triple stab. So then we go in here and we change the action to combat duel. And then we go back here and we check current action is combat duel. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean action state equals null? Ah, I see. I think. I can just turn that off. So we go to the action database. We scroll up to first, let's go here. And then just here somewhere, I don't know, we're there maybe. We're gonna say action state equals skill. Dual idle. Action state equals dual idle. Wait, I am setting that, dude. I think it might be because of the Nephir. Let's see here. He is here. Dual idle. No, it is action state dual idle. And so set action by index. As we set action core should say action state equals action in dot action state. This is actually unused. Entirely unused. Let's try again. There was a file that wasn't saved. I don't know if it was relevant. Why, bro? I think I have an idea of maybe why. Let's do this. So here we have dual. Let's change the Nephir Spearman's dual into Ria's dual idol and see if it plays. It doesn't. So that's the issue. I'm not setting him to the right. Dual state. And that's then here. Dual transition. Init dual scene. And then we set Ria. At this stage, I think we should be able to do 4. When is this added. Action initialization. That's where the execution phase objects are added. So let's call them combat sequence objects. And then we're gonna do this. But we're gonna say combat sequence objects I dot action module there it triggers. Ah. Now we are exiting the combat phase, but they are not transitioning back to regular idle state. All right, let's raise the desk. Stand for a while. Oh, I hate standing. Yeah. This is not a stream meant for entertainment. This is a stream meant for me to be less retarded and able to focus. So this is the worst stream ever. Raise that up. Okay. And then we set combat phase, end of turn, action execution. Let's do it like this instead. Action.initialize. User is base object in controller. I don't want to do it there. That action should always run initialize. And here we do set combat phase dual end. And then as we set combat phase to dual end, let's make another action. Call this dual end. And then we'll say something like if current time frame, if action prime index is greater than action length, then user dot action module dot set action by index action index dot idle. It should be combat idle. But I haven't really implemented that either. And this should just return here. Oh. I'm losing focus. I'll be right back. I might be this close to end of the stream, but I want to push through this because otherwise I'm gonna come back to something that I don't really understand. I barely understand it right now. So we need to add an idol for combat. Here we have an action state equals combat idol. That end of combat idol, and we take it, we go to if you're spearman combat, and we just change these to NPC dot fear dot spearman dot idle dot. Then we take the dual and we add another dual, call it dual end. No, that's not actually what this is. Dual end is when we return to idle. I should set it all up though. I just don't have the animation. This is actually the opposite. It's mirror, supposed to mirror when we look to the west. I'm basically cooked. Nah. Let's see here. What am I even doing right now? Make sure the combat phases set the actions and states correctly as it transitions out of the execution phase. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Set up remaining actions even if they are missing. Yeah. Alright. That'll be the end of it. I have some other things to do. I need to do some writing and stuff, so... I can't do any more programming right now. Anyway, until next time, thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye.